Welcome to week 3 of hashtag 52 needs. This week we are focusing on the need to be heard. And I'm very happy and very privileged to have with me Alan Stevens, who is an international profiling and communication specialist who's worked with the most amazing companies, amongst which are Disney Films and Gillette. He's worked with the Australian Federal Police. Man, you have worked everywhere, Alan. And for me, this is one of my favorite things. I am part of Alan's Campfire Project, where we talk and share our experiences and our wisdom with people all around the world and have these amazing conversations that really fill me up. I mean, they just recharge me and I float for days afterwards. So thank you for being here, because we're talking about being heard, which is really important in the Campfire Project. But I'm really curious to hear from you. What's the difference between being heard and being listened to?
Yeah, well, being heard depends on your interpretation of the two words. Some people will say, I want to be heard, and others will say they want to be listened to.
Mm-hmm.
Being heard at a deep level is actually listening to somebody fully, because one of the issues is that, yes, we hear all the noises, so we hear things. So
Yep.
we're heard in that way. But are we listened to in what we really feel, what message we're trying to get across? And as you've said, in the Campfire Project, in those conversations, you feel fulfilled. You're able, because you know you're being listened to and people are responding back to you, the feedback you get from people when you talk to them. So that's really important. But when it comes to communication, one of the things that we've got to remember is that there's a transmitter and there's a receiver. And it's the transmitter's job to be able to connect with the receiver. If we're looking at a radio, yes, we have to tune out all of our receivers in to match the transmitter, because it puts it out at one frequency, and everybody else, we find the frequency we're after. But when it comes to talking to somebody, we have to understand them. And if we understand them, we then speak to them in the way that they need to be spoken to.
Yep.
And then they don't just hear us talking, but they really listen to us. They get the message.
Okay.
That's
All right.
where,
So that's the communication. This is really interesting, because my definition is very different from yours. I mean, I think the importance of listening is absolutely crucial. It's the skill to do that, and there are different levels of listening, obviously. But I actually define as the need to be heard as the ability to listen and hear somebody from the heart. So it's not just saying, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying from that sound waves go in, I'm hearing the words, I'm clarifying what these words mean, I'm gathering more information, and I'm really with you, I'm really present with you, but I'm also really feeling this. And so it's more the emotional resonance. And
that's
it's
it.
the,
Yeah.
I'm not just, I'm not just here to fix you or give you suggestions, but I'm here to just say, you know what, that sounds really terrible.
See, and
Tell
that's
me
why I
more.
started it. Yeah, and that's why I started out by saying that some people go one way and some people go the other way,
Yeah.
because in your definition as well, as you mentioned, you went from listening to hearing, hearing to listening, because of the deeper levels.
Yeah.
We spend so much time trying to figure that out. But therefore, we're trying to get on the semantics of having the mention the right way. But do we fully understand it, each of us? What it comes down to, when I say that when I'm communicating with somebody, and I have two eyes and I have two ears and I have one mouth, and I use them in that proportion, and I listen generously.
Yes.
So when the person is talking, I really want to fully understand where they're coming from, because if I don't, how can I communicate back to them? If I'm selling something, for instance, I can never make that connection. If I'm trying to guide them through some tough times that they're going through, unless I fully understand them, then I can't actually help them in that process, because all I'm doing then is giving my opinion, which is based on my experience, not what they're going through, because I don't fully understand them. So it's a combination, I believe, of both listening and hearing, and alternating between the two, because some people will say, yes, I can hear, but are you really listening? And others will say, I'm listening, but I'm not hearing anything. And
Yes.
so I believe, let's just put that argument about which is which out of the way altogether, and just step beyond that and go, what are we actually doing?
Yeah.
What?
Well, it was not really an argument. It was
Yeah.
just
Oh, no, definitely not. That's
opening
what
it
I'm
up
saying,
and
though.
saying, yeah.
Yeah, this is for the people who are listening out there to put that aside, because I know some people will be saying, oh, it's listening is more important than hearing, and others will be saying the other. And it's while we're caught up on those semantics, we're not getting into the conversation of what is it real about? As you said, and it's the most important thing, because your experience, your expertise is in the emotions, and saying that, yes, feeling it,
Mm,
being part of it and everything else. I think it's about more a case of bringing the listening and hearing together.
yes.
So they become one, it's
Yeah.
embodied. That's the
Oh,
difference in it. And, as you said, they're the conversations we're having in the Campfire Project all the time.
yeah.
Yeah, respectful and caring of each other,
Mm.
which has been beautiful.
And the thing is, I'm in my experience is we learn as children to stop differentiating A between the two
Mm,
of them, and
mm,
B, we're not really fulfilling our need to be either listened to or being heard,
mm,
whatever you want to call it. Because we get into this place where, I mean, parents are often very busy and children are very curious and they want to have a lot of information and they're
mm,
asking why questions. And I can only speak from an auntie perspective. I'm not a
mm,
parent, but I know that when I was a child, I was often, yeah, that's okay. We'll talk about that later.
mm,
Or when I was hurt or angry, just push that down or whatever it was, like you don't feel that right now, that's not really okay. And so I learned to really just be polite and be nice, like and just really not expect that somebody was really resonating with me anymore. So when this is why I love the Campfire Project, because there's deep listening.
It's always with those respectful conversations, as Pauline Crawford-Omps over in America calls them, magical conversations. So when you connect with somebody, everyone wants to get their message across. And I go, okay, when you're not getting your message across, how do you feel? And they go, well, I feel terrible. It's like in England, if you did the wrong thing, they'd send you to Coventry, was the term that they
Yes.
used, when nobody had talked to you. And
Yeah.
nobody wants to be in that position. So I always say to people, well, if you don't like that, then listen intently to the other person, listen with a purpose to
Mm,
fully understand them. And in all of that, you will hear, you will listen, everything comes together. You'll feel it in your heart, and guaranteed they will pick it up, because as you said earlier on when we started, the way you've felt in those conversations in the Campfire Project,
yeah.
you know, this is the way we are. We're emotional beings, we're energy beings, and we connect. We feel each other's emotions. You walk into a room and you know straight away what
Mm,
the vibes are in the room. And
yeah.
so, if you want to feel the best yourself, be the best to everybody else.
Absolutely. So what can somebody do in order to enhance their listening skills?
Well, one of the areas is that, because as you know, I'm a profiler, it's all
Mm,
about being able to read someone's personality. The more you can understand their personality, that's half the thing. Everyone goes, oh, okay, I need to understand the other person. Well, the first point is to start with yourself. Know how other people see you. Know where you are in the world scale. You might have a high level of confidence, but there'll be people who are more confident. There'll be people who are less confident.
hmm.
But where are you on that scale? And then when you talk to other people, see where they are on that scale. If they're less confident, give them more time. If they're more confident, know that they're going to rush you a little bit, and be ready for that. So the
Yeah.
more we know ourselves, learn to read the other person, and then change the way we like to be spoken to match the way they want to be spoken to.
Hmm.
They will always then respond positively. This is the quickest way to build rapport. And once you've built rapport, people are interested in you, and they want to know what you feel as well, because you've created an ally.
Yeah. Well, the important thing you said is that you talk to somebody the way they want to be spoken to,
That's
because we
it.
often we often learn to speak to somebody the way we would like to be spoken to,
That's it.
which can really be a trap
Mm.
because we are often or generally not exactly the same way, and we operate in different ways. So
Mm.
knowing how somebody else is functioning is really really important. But as you said, it starts with a self. So
That's
self
it.
awareness is absolutely crucial.
Exactly. And it's knowing that, as I said before, you're the transmitter, the other person's the receiver. Don't expect the receiver to change frequency to match you, because they
Mm,
don't know where to go, because they don't know what you're saying. But if you tune your transmitter into their receiver, they will get it every time. And that's why,
yeah.
as I say, read them, know how to speak to them in the way that they like to be spoken to. So with salespeople, I would say, right, how many times have you put a presentation together, everything's been perfect, and then you stepped out to see the client and it's crashed and burned because you prepared it for yourself, you didn't prepare it for them.
Yeah.
So in every aspect of life, the more that we can read and understand other people, the more chance we've got of being able to communicate with them in the way that they need to be communicated with, which means then they will not only hear you, but they'll listen to you as well.
Mm.
And you'll have that connection, and you do the same back to them. And that's when you have the connections with that person, you have their support, you have their loyalty.
Yeah.
It's the same with parent, whether it be a parent to child conversation or a parent to parent conversation.
Yeah. Well, it's the ability to be present as well. I mean, I
That's
can
it.
prepare a conversation with somebody, and then if I just keep going
Mm,
and without taking any feedback on board, that's when things go pear-shaped. But when I'm really aware of how the person is receiving my
that's
communication,
it.
and I make adjustments and maybe ask a question or two, things could turn out very differently. But
Yeah.
again, I mean, I heard I can't remember who said it, but we don't really listen to receive or to hear. We're listening to respond.
Mm.
That
And
means
that's,
that
yeah.
while I'm talking, I'm
Mm.
already preparing the answer, or while I'm listening to the other person.
That's it. You don't take it in, but the more you concentrate on the other person, you
Hmm.
can't help but transfer it from yourself to them.
Yeah.
The intent now is on them. You're going to have that connection with them.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it makes it so easy. Just forget about yourself and just,
Yeah.
talk to the other person to connect with them at the way that they need to be spoken to and treated, and everything will flow very quickly. And you'll find that you just naturally do it without even thinking.
Yeah. Well, the key word that you have just mentioned is connection, right?
Mm,
A lot of people I find are not necessarily there to connect, they're there to make statements. So it's
mm,
not necessarily a bad thing, but it's very ego driven. It's like
mm.
it's when you're saying, you're a profiler, you're not profiling yourself, you're profiling other people. So you're receiving information from them.
That's
And
it.
so we learn again as children, I think, to just always stand up and make a point and get louder. And this need to be heard can express itself in all sorts of not very healthy ways.
That's right. And it just snowballs into the wrong direction, and things escalate. But
Mm,
it's the more that, as I said, the more that we focus on the other person, the more that we're going to be able to get that connection, the more that they're going to notice it as well. They
yeah.
know that they've not only been, they've spoken and it's been heard, it's been listened to, and
Yeah.
that process of the person taking the time to listen goes beyond just hearing the noise.
Yes. Well, any final words that you want to share with us? Any kind of any wisdom that you think we should know as parents, or in any kind of job where you think that listening is really important? I mean, where is it not?
Exactly. Well, it's important everywhere. But as I always say to people, that especially with parents, I don't care what conditions your children might have or whatever. Everybody on this planet, children and adults, everybody's unique, and
Mm.
everybody has a gift. And it's only when you stop and you listen and you hear what they're saying and everything else, and you really connect with them, that you'll find that gift. So where a child might be noisy and everything else, and you focus on trying to stop them from being noisy, well, take a little bit of time to focus on them, and you'll notice they've got a gift, and then you respond to that gift, they change completely.
Yeah.
I've seen it with so many parents with autistic kids or Asperger's or whatever, and they've even been able to take the kids off their medication just because they communicated with their children differently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I may say so, I think that's something that we as adults could take on board as well. I mean, if I look at the world at the moment and how we're polarizing and how everybody's shouting their opinions at everybody, I
Mm,
think stopping and listening is probably going to be, and really fulfilling that need to be heard, and just stopping,
mm,
just being there for somebody
and that,
without having an opinion, without fixing things.
mm,
I think
and
that's the
that's been
greatest gift.
and that's been the good thing about the Campfire Project, because everyone who's come in has the opportunity to have a one-on-one and share their stories. And you've
Mm.
interviewed quite a few as well. And in that, we just listen to their stories, and it's such an honour for people to share. And they've had all sorts of stories, great ones, and really horrible backgrounds and everything else. But to have somebody actually feel safe to have a
Mm.
conversation with us and put all that on the table, that's quite an honour.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I would
listening to
totally agree with
people,
you.
hearing their stories, and really connecting with it, there's nothing more enjoyable in life.
Mm. Yeah. Well, thank you, Alan. Thank you for hearing me, and thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing your wisdom. I look forward to the next campfire panel discussion and for talk and to talking with you, obviously, which is always one of the most delightful things. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.